Hi guys, my name is Akudede. Welcome back to my channel. So if you're new here, it's lovely to have you. But if you're old, hey boo, it's nice to have you back. As promised in my last video, this is my Hausa Cocoa video. And yes, this video is going to give you all the details, step-by-step tutorial on how to achieve the best homemade Hausa cocoa you'd ever have. So if you're interested in this video, let's get right and make sure you take your paper and your pen. We're gonna get busy right now, okay? So first up, I'm going to get my millet, my pearl millet it is, and I'm going to pick out every single grain that is not supposed to be there. Now this thing can be very tricky. You need to be careful. There are times where I've seen maggots in them and I have to trash everything. So make sure you're checking for every single thing that's in there. So it's best to use a tray or a flat surface to do that, okay? Once you're done, make sure you take your strainer or your sieve or whatever and shake out everything, because there's a lot of dust in there. Trust me, there's a lot of dust. You can see that in a bit. Look at all of that coming out of the millet, okay? So make sure you do this and do it really well. And I prefer the metallic strainer, the local one. That way it's able to strain it really well, okay? Now after all the dirt we took out of there, the dirt is not done. Look at all that. So you need to wash this really well. And filling the millet with water and excessive water is going to make all the bad particles I couldn't get out there come on top, and they are going to pour all of that out, okay? So as usual, get the millet in between your palms and rub it gently to be able to rub off all the dirt that are not supposed to be there, okay? Make sure you wash this really well. I washed this for a couple of times before I was able to get one with clear water. It's really necessary because we don't cook this for long. We literally don't cook it with fire throughout, so you need to be careful. Now look at some rocks or some stones that I got in there, so please watch out for that as well. Now it's time for us to blend up our millet. I'm going to blend this nicely with some water, and then I'm going to leave it in a bowl overnight. So up to 24 hours is ideal, okay? But after I made this, the next day I just couldn't make my porridge, so it was in my fridge for about 3 days, and that was okay, because yes, when you make a lot of the millet, you can store it in your fridge for up to whenever. Anytime you need some, just make sure there's water on top. Anytime you need some, you go fetch, scoop some of the settled millet at the bottom, and then you add your water or your spices and you go, okay? So once we are done blending, we are going to strain this really well. First, I'm going to use my sieve to strain the first part, because over right now there's a lot of chaff in there. So I'm going to use the strainer first, and then I'm going to be using a mesh clothing or chiffon cloth to strain the second one. And the chiffon cloth is going to ensure that we're going to get a really smooth porridge with no particles going in there. It's going to be really good. So I went to the market and then I purchased this from those who sell the cloth. I think it was about 13 cedis a yard or 7 cedis. It's not expensive at all, so get yourself one. Now there it is, okay? It makes the work so easy, so I don't have to strain over and over again. When those times when I used to use my strainer for this, I would strain for about 10 times to be able to get a very smooth consistency. But even that, I'll still have a little bit of rough stuff in here and there, okay? So try and get yourself the chiffon cloth. You can use it for so many other things in your kitchen, so dedicate one to your kitchen. Very necessary. And if this is your first time here, I'm sending you a sweet virtual hug. Welcome here. I'm so elated to have you, and I hope you decide to join this family by clicking on the subscribe button so you can come back and watch videos at all times. Also click on the notification bell so you're notified anytime I upload a new content. I love for you guys to be the first to know all the time, so please click on the bell. Also give this video a thumbs up, and then comment, like, subscribe, and most importantly, please share so others can watch as well. Thank you guys so much for growing with me. I really appreciate it. So we are done straining. I've covered it and I set it in my fridge for whenever I was ready to continue. Now here are the spices that I'll be blending with it. Usually People like to blend their spices with the millet. I don't do it that way, okay? It was an Amira that taught me, or a Hajia that taught me this recipe, and trust me, it's amazing, because at any point in time, if you have to do it for the kids, you know how much spices should go in there. If you have to do it for adults, you know how much spices should go in there. If you're in the mood for something hot, if you're in the mood for something really, really mild, you know just how much spices to get in there. Okay, so I'll be listing all the ingredients in the description box. Don't forget to check them out and use them accordingly. Do not overuse the spices. I'm going to explain that later. But yeah, we are done blending our spices, and I'm going to add some more water and then strain this beautifully. This is so good. And the moment you're done blending your spices, you're going to start smelling the Hausa cocoa combination. You're like, oh yeah, there's some Hausa cocoa going in there. All we need now is our millet and we are done. Okay, so for the spices, I strain it twice, and look at what I got at the bottom. No, we don't want that in our porridge. Now that we are done, it's time for us to cook up some delicious Hausa cocoa or millet porridge. So I take off all the liquid that was on top from the previous day, or from the time that I made it. I take that all off and discard it. Now this is what we want. This is the real deal. Okay, so I'm going to scoop the smoothened millet into a bowl separately, and I'm going to be adding my spices. Now the spices you can use to your taste, but the spices is really concentrated, so you need to be careful. I ended up adding a little more millet to this because I thought it was a little much, because I remembered my kids wanted to have some. So I had to add a little more of the millet to do this. Now on my cooking stove, I have some water boiling, and I have mixed my millets nicely. So I'm going to start pouring this into the boiling water. Make sure your boiling water is about the same quantity of the liquid that you're putting in there. If not, which usually I do not do, I make sure that I have hot water in my kettle on the side, because this is going to be getting thick, and as it's getting thick, you should be adding more water. The water that I used early on wasn't much, okay, so that's how come I had to keep adding on and on and on. But if you're able to use the same quantity of hot water to the millet mixture, it's going to be much easier for you to do. You need to be able to stir this really fast. So what I do is, I do not turn off my stove while the water is boiling, okay? So I turn down the heat all the way down just before I put my millet into my hot water, okay? And then just when it starts to thicken, I turn it off, and I'm going to just cook with the heat and then the water in my kettle. So I make sure I boil the water in my kettle before I start, because you're going to be adding water as and when. Okay, very necessary. So once that is done, I cover it nicely and allow the steam to cook it. Also on the side, I'm making some kose and some bullfruit. It's going to be a breakfast feast. All these recipes are on my channel. I'm going to be leaving the links in the description box, so make sure you check it out, the kose video and the bullfruit video, and believe me, you're going to love them. They are absolutely amazing. And now I'm serving myself some cocoa. I can't wait. I'm in a hurry. I want to get into it. I want to indulge. Okay, very necessary. So add some milk, whatever you want. If you don't want milk, it's fine. You can skip it. And then of course, add some peanuts in Hausa cocoa is really delicious. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I'll see you in my next video. Until then, stay safe, be loving, and be caring. Bye.